So I'll try to split this up into some shorter videos, but I'm going to start in section 2.3, which is overloading. And it looks like we're going to make two types of coffees, one with a default constructor. It says new coffee, so there's no parameters. And then the cafe latte, which looks like it has three parameters, for, false, and soy. So my guess is if we look at the assignment directions, the only way to make a cup of coffee is to specify how the coffee should be made. So add an overloaded constructor that doesn't take any parameters. This will allow us to make a default cup of coffee, which is how most people would expect a normal cup of coffee to be made. In the default constructor, you're going to set your brew strength to 3, your sugar to true, and your milk type to whole. So here's our first constructor. The default constructor will add above. And so it's going to look just like our specialized constructor below here. So public coffee. So it's always going to be the name of the class with the word public before it. And a default constructor has no parameters, so we just leave our parentheses empty. But we do still have to set all of our instance variables inside of this default constructor. So no matter what type of constructor we're making, we still have to have, if we have 3 instance variables, there has to be 3 instance variables set to something within our constructor. So in this case, they said to start, we'll start with brew strength. So brew strength, which is coming from our instance variable name up here. And we're setting that equal to 3 according to the directions. And then next we're going to take the sugar. And sugar is a Boolean, so it's going to be true or false. True if they do want sugar, and false if they don't. So true is sugar is equal to true according to the directions. And then lastly, our milk type, which comes up here from our last instance variable. And we're going to set that equal to whole. And that is a string, so remember it has to be surrounded by quotations. There's semicolon on the end. All right, so you'll notice even in this constructor, we have brew strength is going to be equal to whatever our we pass in our tester. So that's this parameter, how strong. Sugar is going to be set to whatever we set it at in our tester in the parameters. And these are formal parameters, and the actual parameters are in our tester. So the actual values, true or false, will be located there in our tester. And then milk, and this will be a string. Type of milk will be put in there, whole, could be skim, could be oat milk, anything that you want to put in there as a string. All right, so I believe this should be all set. Let's take a look. They're not making us do anything in here. We just had to do the default constructor. So let's run that, make sure it looks okay. I usually hit check code first. And check code shows that it ran perfectly. Let's run it too to see what it looks like. So it's going to print out the to string, starting with our first system.out println is our latte. And so this is a level 4, brewed to a level 4. It's false for sugar, so you can see sugar is false. And then in this case, it looks like we have soy milk. So our to string puts it in that format. We didn't have to mess with that at all. That was there for us. And then this default constructor, remember, we set to level 3, the whole milk and sugar true, and that was all done right here in this constructor. It will always equal that if we create a default coffee. All right, let's look at the next one, and then I'll pause after that. I'm using Silas as an example. Sorry, Silas. but this will not save, so you still have to go through and complete these on your own. Let's take a look at this assignment. So break it down into some small pieces here. So this class represents a piñata. So if you're familiar with piñatas, according to Wikipedia, piñata is the shape of an animal made out of paper mache. It's filled with candy, toys. People take turns trying to break it open while wearing a blindfold. The class only has a constructor without parameters. Okay, so the class itself is the piñata.java, right? The tester does not give us any information yet. So let's go to the class. You can see here's our default constructor. Candy, color, and shape are all set to preset values. They're all strings. The class has one constructor, so our job is to add 3 more. So the user can design their own piñatas. You can see the descriptions in the piñata class. You can see how the constructor should be able to be used in the piñata tester. All right, so we're going to add let's just look at the comments. Add an overloaded constructor that allows the user to customize all of the instance variables. Okay, so what we're going to do then is do a public piñata, because that is the name. This is our constructor. This is the name of our class. And so in here, we're going to allow the user to put in all 3 strings. So starting with our candy first. Actually, let's look at the tester just to be sure. Candy, color, and shape. Let's see if that's right. Yeah, candy, color, shape, in that order. So because it's in that order, we have to say string, and I'm going to put the candy, string, the color, and then string, the shape. Okay, now we have to take every one of our instance variables and set them equal to whatever the user input is going to be, or what our parameters are. So candy will equal the candy. So whatever we input as an actual parameter in our tester, we'll set equal to our instance variable. Color equals the color. And then finally shape equals the shape. Okay, now the overloaded constructor should allow this user to customize the color and the shape. I'm guessing they're going to go in order, color, shape. Let's look at the tester just to be sure. Color, shape. I don't think they created one in here. All right, so let's just do this. We'll keep them, usually you try to keep things in order of the instance variables above. It's usually pretty consistent. So public piñata again. All right, so they're both strings. So string color. This allows the user to customize the color and the shape. Oh, the color, I'm sorry. So remember, we cannot use the same name as the instance variable. Okay. Put our curly brackets in. And now we can set each one of our instance variables to, we have to make sure we use all of them. So candy will equal, and I'm going to use the default one up here, hard candy. So you do have to use, and I don't know in the directions if it tells you to use that, but generally whatever is not shown, you would, if the directions don't tell you otherwise, you use whatever the defaults are. So I'm going to say hard candy in that case. And then we have color equals the color, whatever the user inputs. And then shape should equal the shape. All right, so Like you see, again, we have all three of our instance variables in every one of these constructors set to something. That's important that you do that for all of them. Lastly, this last one here just is going to allow the user to customize the candy. So I would like to see if you can test or complete this last constructor on your own. I will pause here and I'll create another video for the last two website class and empty references.